Hey there, ninjas. Welcome to day 11. This is all about your powerful webinar opening. How you start your webinar is so important because it sets the tone for the rest of the webinar. And we want to have a strong start. We want to set a strong tone. Now, even though this is an automated webinar where they're going to watch a recorded video, there's a lot of things we can do to make sure it's powerful and engaging. And I'm going to walk you through them step by step in today's video so we can set this all up. Okay. So to show you what I mean by setting the tone, I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm going to give you an example. Now, remember when we were kids and it was the first day of school? Let's say, for example, it's 5th grade, right? And I'm walking into my first period class, Mr. Jones. I walk into that class. I see Mr. Jones sitting at the desk. He's kind of like writing in his notes. He's not even acknowledging the fact that I'm walking into the classroom. And I kind of just look for a desk and I sit down. I said, okay, I guess I'll just wait until the bell rings, right? Immediately, I make some judgments. I make some assumptions. I have an impression of how the year is going to go with Mr. Jones. I say, this is going to be a breeze. We're going to walk all over Mr. Jones. This is going to be absolutely easy, right? We're not really going to get anything done here. Now, let's compare that to second period. We walk into the second period class. Actually, I don't even walk into the door because Miss McCormick, my second period teacher, is greeting me at the door. And Miss McCormick says, hey, welcome to my class. Here's your seat number. There's an assignment on the board. As soon as you walk in, look at the assignment, find your seat, and get started. That way, we're all set to go when the bell rings. Immediately, I have a different impression of this class versus Mr. Jones's, right? I feel like, okay, this is an organized class. We're going to get work done. Mrs. Jones means business. She's friendly. She's nice, but she's organized. It's a different impression. And I now have a different impression of how the rest of the year is going to go. So this is the kind of impression we want to have when we walk into the classroom, when we walk into the workshop, into the webinar, your automated webinar. We want them to feel like, wow, this is different, this is organized, this is special, right? Now, even though I give you the example of school, right, we have this impression of, wow, this is how the class is going to be for the rest of the year. The person that's attending your webinar is making these judgments about how not only this webinar is going to be, but how it is to do business with you, how your products are going to be like, whether it's a course, whether it's consulting, whether it's a software product. Does this person actually take some pride and has some organization and is professional about what they do? See how important setting the tone, having that powerful opening is important. Okay, so let's talk about what you need to do. So when you start your webinar, and I want you to take some notes because this is how you're going to start. You want to make sure that you have this handy, even if you have some post-it notes on your computer before you hit record and start your webinar. So the first thing I do is I welcome them. I say, hey, welcome to the webinar. I'm Omar Zainab. Today's webinar is about this. I like to remind them what we're here for, okay? Even though this is an automated webinar, I can still get them to engage. And the first thing I want them to do is to do something. I want them to get going because if they're doing, they're going to get more out of it. So I get them to know that, hey, there's a questions area right here on the page. If you have any questions right now or during the workshop or after the workshop, I want you to post a question so I can be able to help you. Now with automated webinars inside of Webinar Ninja, even though they post a question during an automated webinar, you'll get an email, you get a notification that, hey, you have a question from somebody who's attended your webinar and you can reply to it and answer that question, or somebody from your team can do that. So it's still interactive and it gets them to do something and you can then reply to them when you can, okay? So you say, hey, if you have any questions right now, pop them in here, okay? And I want you to also make sure that you get them to do that. So when you're on the webinar, say, hey, I'm serious. Even though this is automated, even though this is self-serve, we're going to get to you. I will reply to you. Be transparent about it. Hey, I will get back to you. I want to make sure that we get all your questions answered. The next thing I want you to do is create a poll and launch it. Send that poll out to the audience. And you can say, hey, there's also a poll here that I want you to answer. Okay. And the poll is just to get them to interact again, get them to do. And it also gives you a general understanding of your audience. And this is just a question you can ask. Like, for example, if I'm a basketball coach, what's the highest level of basketball that you've played? Is it recreational? Is it high school? Is it college? Is it semi-pro? Is it pro? And you get them to answer. That way they're interacting, okay? So they're doing from the start, okay? So you can get them to ask questions. You can get them to ask polls. Even though this is automated, they're going to get some interaction out of it. And then you go strong at the start. Hey, today, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is the webinar. And we'll talk about the layout and the outline of your webinar in a moment. I say in a moment, but in future videos, because we have a lot to do in terms of creating the content of your workshop. But right now, we're just focusing at the start. So when we start, we say, thanks for the polls, thanks for the questions. Okay, Today, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is the workshop, how to improve your free throw shooting by 10%. You want to be super transparent at the start, and you want to be as honest and as open as possible. So what I like to do is start with a menu. So say, these are the things we're going to cover today. These are the points. This is what we're going to cover. And we're going to talk about outlining your lesson, but this is where you're going to really just open up and say, hey, this is my mission. I want to teach you 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're making an offer, which you should be making an offer because this is part of the program, you want to mention it at the start. Now, in that outline, you also want to mention the offer you're going to be making. You want to be transparent. You want to surprise them. You want to make sure you earn that trust, right? You build that trust. Hey, I'll also be making a special offer for those who want to get started with one of my programs or my consulting package or whatever you do, okay? So make sure it's clear. And of course, if you have any questions, remind them. Pop the questions so we can answer those questions for you. So that's the powerful opening. You want to make sure you set the tone. I want to give you another few tips. Stay as positive as possible. Try to smile, okay? Even if you're not on camera, you're only using slides, you can hear a smile in somebody's voice. I want you to close your eyes right now. Close your eyes, okay? And I'm going to talk right now without smiling. This is my voice when I'm not smiling, and you can tell that I'm not smiling. But when I'm smiling right now, you can hear the smile in my voice, right? So make sure you're smiling, make sure you're positive, make sure they feel that they're welcomed, okay? Again, mention what the webinar is about, talk about the questions, talk about the poll, okay? And then give them the menu of the day. This is what we're going to be covering today. So they're setting up expectations. This is what we're covering. This is what we're learning. Great. This is awesome. Some of these items might jar their memory and say, hey, I have a question about that, and they'll post that question. Fantastic. This is your powerful opening. This is going to set the tone and make them feel like, okay, this is different. This is going to be fantastic. Let's watch through the end of the webinar. Okay. We're going to move on, but make sure you take down these notes and you start crafting your opening as well using these tips. We're going to move on tomorrow to day 12. We're going to be talking about outlining your webinar. We'll talk about how to break it down. We're talking about the rule of 5 and 3. I'll tell you what that's all about later. But tomorrow, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing that. Your homework today, this is your homework assignment. Craft your opening. I want you to even just write it down if you'd like to, and then just rehearse it. Say it 3 or 4 times. Say, hey, I'm so-and-so. Today's webinar is about this. And just walk through the motions. Say, hey, if you have any questions, please ask them in the questions area. Here's a poll. I have a poll that's available to you. Please answer the poll. I want you to say the words out. I want you to feel comfortable with your opening, okay? So write down some notes about how you're going to open up. Just use the guide I just gave you right now, and then rehearse it. Say it 3 or 4 times. This is important because when you run your webinar, you record it so you can be able to use it as an automated webinar. This has got to feel natural, right? I've run over 500 webinars, so when I do my opening, super natural, right? But it's because I have the reps. I want you to have a few reps before you actually record. Okay, that's your homework assignment. Outline your opening and rehearse it. And then tomorrow we'll talk about outlining the whole workshop. Can't wait for that. I'll see you there.